it's very important to do some research and find out what are the available journals, to look at the previous publications, look at the publication history of that journal, and to find out that this topic in which journals has been published previously and at the moment.
So I've been working with our supportive, friendly, lovely librarian liaison along the way, and they helped me a lot to target the right place, because there are all sorts of matrix in place in terms of ranking of the journals.
Have a look at who the editors are, who the associate editor board is. Are there people that you recognize from your field of research? Have a look at whether that is the best journal for you. And then start to see yourself not as a student, if you want to submit a paper, but as a professional academic.
The first and most important thing is that the manuscript has to be relevant to the journal.
Say they're looking for an article that they can understand. And I think one of the main reasons that I would reject a paper is if, after I've read one page of it, I either don't know what it's about or I have absolutely no understanding of the presentation of the material.
I like to see a paper that is complete, well structured and correct. If there are scientific faults in your paper, you won't get it published.
As a co-editor-in-chief, I am the first barrier to getting your paper out to review. So what I'm looking for is that the paper is relevant to the journal, that the paper, the science that you're conducting is at an international level, because I work for an international journal, and that means that it is potentially of interest to a global readership.
There's a critical aspect in terms of, when you get to review something initially, you want to see, is it novel and has it been done before?
One of the other key things is that I like to see a consistent and logical story through the paper. This means that you need to be able to present a good understanding of the literature as it stands.
You have to place your work in the context of previous literature and not to hide previous literature. So even if there is a closely related study, you need to be very upfront in identifying that.
Other red flags would include authors who suggest inappropriate reviewers, perhaps obscure reviewers who have very little experience or whose experience is unrelated to the topic of the paper.
In some cases, some journals ask for just 30 words on what are your most important finding. Don't skip those sections. I can't believe how many authors do, and often those authors are students. And in those cases, I might not even put your paper through to review.
There's technical issues. Is the paper within the page limit of the journal, if it's got a page limit? And then the editor will probably also just do a cursory check through the paper to assess its quality. Is the English reasonable? Is the equations well organised? Do the figures have captions?
These kinds of things suggest to me that these authors are inexperienced. Now, inexperience isn't a reason to reject. We will look further, but this does make us a bit concerned with credibility, and will potentially have an influence on if that decision ultimately is a borderline decision.
So the outcome of your paper, which is the final conclusions of the paper, need to be supported by the data. They need to be supported by the literature, previous literature, and the experiments that you've done, and a proper analysis of those experiments. So I see that as the journey of the paper. Most papers follow that line.